Good morning, y'all. It's not a particularly warm morning, but anyway, I figured to make a video. What I wanted to talk about today was young people and vaccinations and how they definitely should get vaccinated. In saying that, there's a lot of bullshit that goes with vaccinations. For one thing, it's not what you think it is. It's not as simple as you get vaccinated, therefore, it's less likely you'll get whatever ailment it's supposed to stop, and everything's all hunky dory. And on the flip side, it's also not just some big government conspiracy so that they can inject a bunch of nasty stuff into you, and you don't really know what it does, and they're using you as a guinea pig. Now both sides have their legitimacies. With the pro vaccination, it originally was to stop the spread of certain things, like polio and other cardiovascular, and I don't understand that part entirely. Okay, I'm not interested. It's boring ass shit. But the psychology behind things is what I'm more interested in. And yes, the capitalism factor does it makes its rounds in this particular topic. Um, because people wonder, well, why, if someone gets vaccinated, do they get so sick? If somebody who's not vaccinated, is, I guess, ill around them or simply around them. The thing is, um, that doesn't happen particularly often. I mean, most people are vaccinated. Um, and it is true that the diseases that they were supposed to stop are truly horrible. But the problem is they're magnified because of how primitive the vaccines were in the early days. Because before, medications didn't take much screening time. They simply put them on the market as quickly as possible before they started finding faults for it. And, Big Pharma and other representatives sort of just danced around this problem, like they do with everything, and try to ignore it and distance themselves from it. These days, more and more people are getting caught up in it that know the system and accept it as part of the world and how things work. They just chalk it up to it's their job. There's always bad things here, but if it's trying to do good, yada yada, making excuses. That's what it is. And like these vaccinations in the beginning were population control. If you're dependent on something, whether you continuously have to take it or not, dependent as in you have to take this particular whatever, then it's very easy to control certain aspects of it. Like before, um, and even now to a lesser extent, the government looks for ways of eliminating the whole populace in a certain area for whatever reason, um, without looking like they did anything. And saying something's a super bug would be a excuse that they probably, or they most definitely thought would work in decades past. But the problem is, prominent people in society got vaccinated as well, and that lie's not going to hold up. Throughout each generation of new medications, new management styles of the big pharmaceutical industry, they update. And the thing is, it's exactly the same as in any other industry. They clean up the mess of the previous generation, water it down so they themselves don't look bad, but they don't completely fix it. And the reason they don't completely fix it is because there's still the old garbage that's inhibiting them from doing that. from the old crowd. That's one reason. Two, it makes their organization look bad, and they may be the face of the new organization, but they still carry the organization's history from people who have access to it or remember it for themselves. So, you know, somebody could be new to the big pharmaceutical industry. They could be the new scientists, they could be excellent at what they do, but they still have to lie about previous generations of medications and things like that. They have to for various reasons. Because one, most people don't have the understanding of what medication is and they will not take it, such as the anti-vaccination movement, if all they hear is the bad stuff, and there's a lot of bad stuff to cover, so they won't make money as a capitalist institution. That's one reason. That's the personal reason why a certain group of people who are brand new to the system will continue to lie about previous wrongdoings, because they don't want to explain it to people. They don't want anyone knowing. They figure it's just easier if people don't know shit, and they're right, but that doesn't mean they're not assholes. And the other reason is the fringe elements of the previous generations of that particular organization who have their claws embedded, uh, people who sign up for pharmaceutical industry type stuff, it's obligation, things like that. And it means following certain rules. And one of those rules is you don't talk shit about things that have happened before. You simply don't do it. And there are a lot of people who had to live through real shitty times, and it's like they'll avoid, having to directly say it to those people. Oh, gee whiz, you were vaccinated with some pretty horrible stuff, and I feel bad for you. They may think that, but they won't actually say that. So they are, to some extent, guilty as fuck. And there are some from the new generation of Big Pharma who simply don't care. They're just a bunch of cunts because the Canadian government, because every significant government has their own branch of the pharmaceutical industry, and they all group together and try and figure out what groups of medications, vaccines, whatever, are going to be the most effective. Uh, and there is legitimacy to that because we have to try and improve ourselves as a society, but the psychology behind medication does need to change. But I'm not one of these anti-vaxxers who goes, well, if you just eat your fruits and vegetables, blah blah blah, you'll be blah, 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 blah. It's like, yes, that is important, but this other shit is still out there, like fucking uh, just nasty diseases. They're still out there, and there's still other governments and other places that don't actually like us very much, and will create these things, and our bodies may have zero immunity to it. So that is a legitimacy to pro-vaccination. It's just they were blithering fucking incompetents before, and they were nasty people. They're a little bit less nasty now. It's watered down, but they are still absolute cunts, and they still want your fucking money. That's the bottom line. So they're still doing fucked up things, and there are still assholes from the fringe elements in those organizations who are most likely incompetent. They did one thing they thought was super amazing, a long time ago, and made the company a lot of money, and didn't do anything else but perch themselves somewhere where they could observe, new innovations, where money was going, and they didn't really do anything for themselves. They got lazy. They just got used to getting information given to them. So they're not really contributing anything. And not only that, the things they invented, maybe were innovative at the time, but since then, they're, not really, they were bad in a lot of ways and they fucked up. But because of their position, the amount of money they have, and, the power they have in their position, they remain, even though they have nothing useful to contribute, and they've got a lot of bad baggage with them. And as far as what I was going to say about controlling the population, and how it's convenient to say, you know, if the vaccinations behave in a certain way, and everybody believes the government line of this is how it is, this is what it does, blah blah blah. Believe us, we're authority figures. If you don't believe us, we're gonna get angry at you. Fuck you, by the way. Um, you know, um, that um, people aren't going to believe that, and they're not going to be in a position like I am, where they have to tell people on the internet to sort of say, hey, this is what's going on. They'll think that amongst themselves, and it'll be the whispering campaign. So it's not like big pharma's going to get away with what they did. And it's just one of them things. But it is important to note that you know, it's a multifaceted, like a lot of things are, complicated, giant, hideous mess. And, you know, there are reasons why a government institution would go, well, look, this particular populace is problematic for whatever reason, uh, and it could be contained. They treat people as if we are viruses. I mean, in the Matrix, Hugo Weaving even described us as that. I mean, I guess technically a human being is, a mammal virus to the world, but that really paints it in a kind of a cold image, doesn't it? It dehumanizes us, and it makes the powerhouses behind how things are all the more robotic, cold, calculating, lizard-like. And you know it's like the thing about this whole thing is it's an easy way for them to you know explain a situation, and then in the translation propaganda gets mixed up, and people don't believe this, don't believe that, so it's lost its effectiveness. Back decades before, the government could have gone on the television and said there is a blah 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 outbreak in this particular area, and this is what's happening. And the justification they'd have that is going, well, there are foreign powers that have, like, particularly the Soviets, who are inventing biological agents, blah, 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 and this is what it is, and most people would believe it because of all the propaganda they've been listening to for all the time they've been growing up. So the problem is the fucking doctors of these days do know that, so they're climbing the echelon of assholeness. And they go, well, it's not my fault. I'm trying my best, blah, 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 blah. This is part of the rules. And if I don't follow the rules, I won't be getting anywhere in the company. And how will I be able to help anyone anyway? And it's like, perhaps that's true if you're not lying and you're not a cunt. And those are things to take into consideration, because we don't know that. Your word's not good enough. You're still alibying the assholes out there, simply because you need to protect your own job. You didn't know what you were getting into. They didn't tell you, and now you're roped into the system because you don't want to lose your job and be poor. Well, if you're still injecting vaccinations into people and they're asking you the fucking questions and you don't want to answer them because your bosses tell you not to, because you go, well, no one would take it if we don't. Well, because the problem will get worse if they don't take it, even though it's bad enough problem already, and other various factors. It gets to the point where it's like you're a lesser version of the current assholes that did that. And the chain only gets uglier and uglier and uglier as it goes, and physical attractiveness is not enough. If you're going around visiting people, you're a fucking asshole, and it doesn't matter what you look like, you're ugly as sin. And the capitalist push is most certainly still there. There are so many medications that they simply hand out, and that's it, and that's because it's a moneymaker for them. And it's not an easy subject because to to discuss because, like I said, it's multifaceted. Anything could be going on, and there could be things that you're blind to simply because that information is not available to the general public. You have to go to school to be indoctrinated. You have to have claws put into you so that you do not talk, and you keep their dirty little secrets, and you perpetuate their evil. Maybe watered down. You may have done things better, but guess what? That's not an excuse for incompetence. And it's not an excuse they would tolerate from anyone else, and that's because they're hypocrites. Absolute fucking hypocrites. Um, I mean, it's good that mentalities have changed. I would like to think that, people who've done significant wrong in industries have been punished severely for what they did. But somehow I think a lot of them got away with it. Simply because you look at the attitude of all the fucking people involved with it, and they think that they're so righteous in their position that they have no other choice and they're doing the best they can now. And in hindsight, it's 2020. So, it doesn't matter that it's a little bit less evil. They figure that the previous generation that did more evil are worse, and therefore they're resolving the issue. They're trying to fix it. They're doing the best they can, and all that sort of stuff. But in reality, as I said, they're alibying a fucking nasty organization that deliberately did fucking evil things. And, part of that there is solid reason for other reasons as well. Like, for example, how the hell are you going to trust an organization that did something like that ever if you knew the full extent of what they'd done and how they fucked up so many times? How are you supposed to respect them as intellectuals if you understand the history of them? So you can't learn that stuff unless you go into a certain field. And as I said, the claws get into you. You gotta think a certain way. You're forbidden to say anything else, and that's why I hate places like university. It chalks out fucking people who think they're so fucking smart, and they're not. They know stuff that could be taught to anyone easily, but it's taught to them difficultly because they want to build a foundation on how their brain is constructed. It's an indoctrination center rather than an education center. You're supposed to behave according to a certain mold that you are performing your job at. So therefore, you're not learning to do your job better. You're learning the social mechanisms of how you're supposed to behave in that job. And that's why bureaucrats, for example, they have this playbook where they have 1,000 fucking examples of what they can say, and at the time being, most people won't know exactly what the counter argument would be in a timely manner. And depending on the situation, it could be very bad, bad, not so bad, or whatever. Or they've fucked you over and they expect you to, go, oh, this is wonderful. They've been so kind to me and thoughtful. And they're helping me out, and I should be grateful. And these people, they weren't the very bad guys, but they were trying to help, you see, because, not everyone agrees in certain organizations. People have different opinions and things like that. And, a lot of internal fighting, mostly squabbling of who gets the biggest share of the pie because they're all greedy fuckers who want more and more and more money. So some of them are working in your best interest. And although they fucked you over a little bit by going along with parties that, weren't looking out for your best interest, uh, that makes them less guilty. Very true. But that's to be calibrated as to how they're to be punished. And it should be our good justice that punishes them appropriately, because having money and being in a position like that is not immunity. It isn't. The whole fabric society of how it's constructed psychologically is not difficult to disrupt. And there are plenty of people more than willing to do it. And, the poor chump like myself who's got to go onto social media and talk about it because there are people with similar opinions, but like they don't want to have to say it because they know what kind of trouble it'll bring. But they need a chump like me to say it. So I get the shitty job of explaining things that are gonna piss some real assholes off. And these assholes have more money than me. They know more about society than I do. They're in specific positions that give them more power than I do. However, as I said, there's a lot of interior fighting and a lot of people that don't like each other anyway, and that's just part of the world. And they have complicated, deep-seated, decades-long reasons for not liking each other. Um, you know, um, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but the enemy of my enemy doesn't mean that he is not still an asshole. And he's gonna go do stuff anyway. Um, and some of them will contradict your best interest. Uh, you do not want to put up with this kind of bullshit. And a lot of people, they go, it's better to be blissfully ignorant. In fact, it's been a staple to say that for quite a long time. Ignorance is bliss. No, fuck you. It's bliss for you. It's easier for you, assholes, if the populace is ignorant. It's not actually better. You're still getting fucked over. You just don't see it. And a lot of these medications, they're beginning to discover that they got long-term side effects and, things that become permanent after a while. And when you got assholes who invent something and sitting on their perch, like I talked about, and they just put through a system where their product keeps getting pushed, and they're able to continue making money so that they can climb higher up on their perch. And, most of them get lazy. I mean, that's human nature. Over time, you get older, you get lazier. We don't want to always feel like a slave because that's not healthy either. People go, well, if you exercise, you keep moving, you keep working hard, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, but you're a peasant. You're not living your life, the best. It's like, there has to be a balance, you see, of, where you're successful and what you're doing and eventually you can continue to contribute. You're always contributing rather than taking. And, it's all about yourself and your own image. And, you know, to get into the system, there's the easy way, which is you have guardians, parent figures, whatever, who have gently put you into the system so that you deal with the least amount of problems. If your parents are blithering incompetence and weren't in the system, you could get thrown into it like me. Uh, and that means you go through the meat grinder, which is what happened to me. I know a lot of shitty things about the pharmaceutical industry, and I learned them actually because of fucking racist reasons. A lot of people don't like white people to begin with, especially the men, because they lost the tribal wars of before. And I go, well, gee whiz. After what you've done to me, I don't feel particularly bad about what happened before because it didn't have anything to do with me. It's exactly what you would do in that situation. Except I wouldn't lie about it. Wouldn't fucking lie about it if I could. Eventually that'll probably have to change because some asshole will, I don't know, continue the abuse. Probably. Oh, that's shitty. And back to the tribal wars of before. Okay, sure. The colored man most certainly in this Justin Trudeau apologized for everything, which means he's not really apologizing. He's saying, "All right, I feel bad about what happened before, so you go on ahead and fuck over some white people because they're white, not because of any other reason, but because they're white." And Justin Trudeau is trying to, wishy-wash the fucking situation because he goes, well, there's something of value that these assholes have now that we need, whether it's intellectual property, which can make products better, blah, 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 blah. And he's inherited the bullshit from before, as well as everybody else. So, young guy, relatively young prime minister, becomes, someone of a cult of personality, has people around them making decisions for them, pushing them in certain ways. They use them as the proxy to get away with what they do. And you may see a young face. You take a guy like Zuckerberg, for example, and you go, some people will instantaneously believe them because they're pig ignorant. And he is to be blamed, but as I said, it's a calibration thing. You blame them to an extent for what they are guilty of at the present time, and lying about bad things or whitewashing them or whatever is a reason not to like somebody. Um, Hiding the evil of the people that are within their organization, whether they have a choice or not, is also a reason to punish someone. And the pharmaceutical industry has a lot of ghosts in their closet. And, what they started is essential because we do have enemies who will use biological agents against us. And in our government, they're inviting them in. They're intellectuals to develop vaccines for us because they think of things from a different perspective. It's not because they're smarter, it's because they think of things from a different perspective. So they have a different sense of what's going to work and what's not going to work from their own perception. They're not always right, not always fucking right. And a lot of the places where they're creating new innovations for medications and things like that are actually horrible places with less, restrictions on human experimentation and things like that. And the problem with that, well, there are advantages, as sick and twisted as it is. There are advantages and there are disadvantages. Disadvantages, person gets to come in, complete cold ass because they just experimented a particular whatever's on a group of people in their own country, 10,000 of them. So they're hearing 10,000 weeping and crying because they fucked up over there and they learned lessons from that. They can take that mentality, bring it here, cooperate with the Canadian government, and make decisions that will affect less people, but they'll go, it's the world's smallest violin. Because people don't quite understand that concept particularly well. They don't understand. They always think, oh, it's the world's smallest violin because somebody missed a bus that shows up every 5 minutes. They can wait for the next one. They think it's that simple, and it is to that extent, but it's another one of those terms that's multifaceted. If they experimented on a particular thing on 5,000 people somewhere else, if they zero in to see, well, how is it going to affect somebody in a different situation from a different perception in this country? And they knew ahead of time of all the shitty things it could do, and there were aspects they didn't know about it, which is why the experiment was done in the first place. Um, then they could fuck over you, and it's like they would have to work extra hard to make sure that people have a certain perception of what's going on, which means they'll start lying. They'll start lying like completely, and it all goes up the chain of command. The assholes you deal with, they only know what they've been told. They've been conditioned, barked orders at, blah, 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 blah. It's their job, so they don't know much themselves. You can't get mad at them because if you do, then things just get worse for you because then they send their goons in, but they're still fucking you over. And it's a gradual pace over and over. And then they don't want you to see the next person in charge. I know I've asked before and they've gone, no, 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 that's too busy. And they have to follow the same rules. And it's all perpetuates the evil of the pharmaceutical and other organizations that do bad things. It protects cocksuckers who do bad things from ever even being known. And it doesn't have to be like that. Doesn't have to be like that. Um, you know, I really wish the generations of old were more competent, but I also wish they were more incompetent because they are a minority. And if they were more competent, one of the things they'd work on their competency is the ability for them to disguise what they're doing. It would That's a big part of what they do is disguising what they do. Um, and they do this simply so that if they fuck up, which is considered an inevitability in that industry because they don't know what the fuck they're doing, and they're new pioneers in a new system. Um, uh, uh, it simply enables them to get away with that. And they like to think they're so much harder and that they're so much smarter and they're doing everything better and they're doing a job that other people wouldn't want to do because they want the easy life. Therefore, they have to live the dumb life. And, I just simply really, really despise people who can do bad things and will do bad things. And if they're bringing their biases over from whatever mud hut shit village they come from and go, well, this was the white man's fault over there. And then, the propaganda starts. There was that douchebag from The Hangover going, but did you die? And it's like, no, I didn't, but you inconvenienced me. You caused me a great deal of pain. You did this for racist reasons, and me pointing it out, all you would do is turn around and say, I'm the one being racist, when a matter of fact, it's actually you. And, it's not like they haven't thought about the psychology behind it. It's not like they go, well, in the reverse situation, you'd have done the same to me because you would have followed in line with the system. And in doing so, because there are examples of people the exact same as you, the same system, same area, uh, trained in a certain way, and they would do things a certain way, so they assume you would too, and think, well, they're not going to have any independent thought because that'll be, the mechanisms of social hierarchy will inhibit them from doing that. But sometimes they don't calculate everything correctly, as is evident in the vaccinations and how they're fucked up. So, I mean, you do have to continue to take them. It is necessary, but you have to be aware that they fucked up about it. And when they lie about it, they are at least guilty of that. And it doesn't matter if they're a nice person in every other aspect, they're still lying about a big asshole thing deliberately because it would inconvenience them to tell the truth to you because then they have to explain things to their bosses who get mad at them, who are higher up the echelon of assholeness. And, you know, as I said earlier, not everything will be entirely accurate of what I'm saying, but you got to start thinking, the, the hamster's running around in the on the wheel, and you gotta really, you don't want to be no guinea pig. And they do cherry pick people, and they're getting more efficient at it too, where they can do it and do it in such a way where even if they're wrong, nothing happens to them. Except sometimes there are exceptions. Um, and I happen to be one of those exceptions. Um, because I got experimented on for years and years and years. And all they did is turn around and say nasty buzzwords about me. And the thing is, as time progresses, the more absurd they're going to look. And because they're evil bastards that have done evil things in the first place, um, they're going to get more and more. direct about their unreasonableness. They're completely unreasonable at this point because they have people pulling strings, particularly from other parts of the world, who, can disrupt economy, supplies, goods and services. They're interconnected in different things, and they have a different ideological belief on what Canadian society should be. And it is important to learn things from other places in the world because maybe they're doing something better. But for them to go, well, we sacrificed 10,000 people to this treatment we tried that didn't work or didn't have the desired outcome. So when we bring this philosophy over to your country, or vaccination, medication, whatever, our government goes, well, we don't want to look weak, but not unreasonable to our capitalist interest. So we will pick a singular individual or a small group of people, and therefore it's less harm, it's less bad, and they don't feel as though they've done anything wrong because of that, because they're following the system and they're doing what they're told and they're protecting their capitalist interests. And it's just a merry-go-round, bullshit. So much bullshit everywhere. And, you know, um, these medications at this point could be made a whole lot better. But they don't do it. They don't do it. They water it down because they want to disguise certain things. And it is spooky because, as an old person, there are a lot of things that, bam, that gets you. That's it. It's you're in big trouble. And I don't want to be as old as Mr. Burns and be completely frail and anything could get you. And these medications, bam, not comfortable to live with knowing that, but it's truth. So multifaceted. Like you go on and on and on for hours and hours about this sort of subject. And remember, I haven't read any of this shit on the internet. You're not going to find any of this shit on the internet. As a matter of fact, if you're going to train to be a pharmacist or anything like that, you're not going to learn about any of this shit because you're still a young person and you are being indoctrinated on how to behave. That is a major element to going to school, which is why I fucking hated school and why I continue to hate school. I don't want to be told how to think because I don't think they're smarter. I think they're just assholes. And these assholes, they like to combine, they like to, join in groups and things like that, hog all the information, deny you of any of it, and you're there essentially trying to piece together what the fuck's going on, and they're there behind closed circles having in-depth conversation within their own rules and parameters, of course. Some of them, anyway. Some of them are pretty dumb looking, and I don't think they have much to contribute, to be honest. Because that's another thing. If you don't have anything to contribute to the conversation, then I guess you're not going to learn so much. Which is why the ones who are parked so high up the echelon, because of one thing they did before, and who even knows if they actually did it or if they just took credit for it when they were younger. Um, why are they part of the conversation? They have biased beliefs. They're stupid. They carry the baggage of what they know about the world with them, which is not progressive, which is problematic because they have their own corrupted interests to protect. And oh, what a horrible mess! A horrible, horrible mess. And I have said it before. I have, where they do medical experimentation on peoples who are in certain situations where no one's going to hear them complain or whine, or if they do, they're not going to do anything about it because of somebody getting mad at them. And when that happens, that's how evil is enabled. and everything is so ass backwards and crazy. It's like, is this the fucking Roman Empire? And I don't mean, oh, is it going to collapse soon or whatever. I mean, is it filled with decadence, atrocious abominations, perversion? You know, you watch mainstream media, you listen to what people say and how their opinions are of the world, and you go, you're a tad bit fucked up in the head, aren't you? Got a lot of fucking screws loose. But you're the exact type of person who turn around and go, he was mental health, he will always be mental health. And why do you do this? Because you are pig fucking ignorant. And this stuff takes up a lot of intellectual time in somebody's head. And I like to look at myself as a pioneer in the field. I didn't see anybody else do it before me, so I'm working on it myself. My intellectual theory behind it. Uh, and I know the counter arguments I would hear. Simplest answer, dumbest answer, they'd say, he's not been vaccinated, he's not been taking his medications, blah, 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 and he's acting out because of that, and that's the only explanation we have to give. Excuse me, asshole, I'm trying to be reasonable here, and you are not. And you talk to people like they're stupid all the time, that it actually makes you look stupid. And then you run away because that's all you can do, because you're wrong. And this whole, well, it's less evil now, less harm, did you die, quote unquote, bullshit is what it is. It's fucking bullshit. But you're talking to people who have their hands in other evil things too, like they start wars to make profits, all the usual kind of shit. And they experiment on animals. Sometimes they disassociate human beings from being other human beings through whatever reasons. Sometimes, there are people who've done things so horrible that, you don't really feel bad for them. However, you have to note that the people that use those excuses for pushing, their philosophies, treatments, medications, bullshit, are simply as evil. They simply didn't get caught doing it yet. And, all those people work for the system going, well, there's no way to stop them. We're not going to do anything because it'll affect us. And, the quality of our lives will be decreased. And you should be grateful that we're even here in the first place. And it's like, by George, you know what? I am grateful that you are here in the first place. But that doesn't mean that you ain't going to get punished for what you've done. Because they're assholes, but to a lesser extent. But they're still assholes. And you try to be reasonable about things, you try to do things right, but you're just not smart enough to fix the fucking problem. And I am no hypocrite about it. I say this knowing that people are going to go, well. uh, However, I'm not involved in that bag of bullshit, I'll tell you that much. I'm fixing the problem from my perspective. And it's a perspective less heard, and that there aren't anyone here to fully appreciate the insight that I would have from my current position, because they want to believe the rhetoric, the simplistic rhetoric, because simplistic rhetoric's better in certain ways, authority figures. And not enough people understand that authority figures are often assholes and they lie. And there's some people who do understand that, and are afraid of that, which is why they don't talk out. And then there are those who essentially they have nothing to lose. I don't look at it that way, but there are people who are like that, and that's why punitive actions taken out by the establishment against those individuals are quite brutal. And it's not what they do to them directly necessarily, but it's also how people perceive what is done to them. So even if they're wrong, they still they throw the book at them. They're guilty of everything. And this is all to disguise what they've been doing and all their fuck ups because they can't have people walking around. It can't be general knowledge that people know that the pharmaceutical industry is run by a bunch of blithering, incompetent cunts. Because if you look at things from a certain perspective, you go, hey, this is only 15 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, where these people were fucking total morons. And, or longer ago. And, change happens faster now because people want to know what's most efficient, what works. Everybody's a test subject, and they're able to compile information a lot faster. But in decades past, people were able to get away with being assholes on particular subjects without punitive actions for a lot longer a period of time, which is another thing that these people new to the game don't understand is that they're protecting people like that for their own self-preservation, their own interest. And it's like if they gotta, uh, lose profits or, liquidate baggage that's been causing disruption in the system and corruption, internal fighting, and all that sort of stuff. That's what's got to be done. And, look at me. I only know things from my perspective. And, being an involuntary celibate hermit has its advantages because I don't think like other people do. And that's not what they wanted. They wanted me to think exactly the way they told me to. And I've developed a personality that says, you know what? Fuck you. I'm not going to just think what you tell me to because I don't agree with it. If I agreed with it, maybe I'd consider it, but I don't. I don't agree with it. Fuck yourself. Get the fuck away from me. And, yeah, this whole big pharmaceutical mess and vaccinations, it's one trying headache. It's painful. It's excruciating. I mean, this is if I weren't having my own, physical symptoms against my body because of it. The simple brain cramp of how embarrassing fucking the Canadian system and our pharmaceutical, uh, system really is that, um, you know, uh, is enough to cause, people to feel, physically compromised or, whatever's. But with me, I have the added effect of also physically feeling shitty because of the medication they've given me. This is a physical thing. Like it wouldn't matter what I thought, I'd still have it. So all that praying and meditation and going, "Ooh, go to the land of Buddha," and all that kind of shit, it doesn't work. Doesn't work. And you're gonna have to get used to that idea. It's always a little magic something else, and you're not supposed to know what it is, so they don't tell you. And this philosophy, because certain things are bad for you, and Western perception of certain types of things being bad for you, such as alcohol and things like that, they're changing it, and you will have the old generation who are stubborn as shit who won't listen to you. It doesn't matter what you say, how you say it. They simply won't listen to you because that's not the version they want to believe because they have that impediment. I understand that there are cocksuckers out there who do not have my interest, and not only that, they can't stand the fact. They can't stand it that I'm somebody that they weren't expecting, that I'm not doing what they say. And in my particular case, it was medication is supposed to stop me from drinking alcohol. I don't drink anywhere near as much as I did before, and they keep using the ideological belief, well, if he wasn't in his current predicament, he'd go back to drinking and self-destruct anyway. And this way, he's helping us understand human psychology and what someone's going through, and from a certain perspective, and how they can better the treatment plan. Except I'm not as focused on that. After what they did to me, fuck them. I'm not there to help them. They're there to fuck off and undo the damage they've done and compensate. I know that's a word they hate, especially when you get people of different backgrounds going, but it didn't compensate us back in the 80s when you did this. And it's like, well, they didn't because you aren't smart enough to make them do it. That's your problem. I mean, I would feel bad, but if you're using that psychology against me, then unfortunately you can go fuck yourself. You're in the way. And I'm not disguising, the evils white men in particular have done and continue to do. If they're a bunch of assholes, then that's what they are. I don't have to like them. But I do understand that there are people of all kinds of shapes, colors, and perceptions that are indeed assholes in their own rights and problematic. And you tackle one problem at a time. You tackle one problem at a fucking time. And with the way the system's going, I don't like the idea that people don't understand what's going on. And that's the whole point of this vaccination. Vaccination is a medication. I mean, it sucks that we have to take it. It sucks that it was designed so shittily. But as it gets watered down through the generations, hopefully one time there'll be a period where it's not so shitty. We're nowhere near that point at this point in time. However, there is promise that one day things could be different. I don't know, but that means people have to stand up, and it also means the people in positions where they don't have that much power, but they have that little bit of power and a little bit of knowledge, and wouldn't stand up because they're doing the traditional human thing, which is getting in a position, being comfortable, and guarding that little perch of protection and comfortability. Yeah, sometimes you gotta put a little fire under their fucking seat and make them move. Because if you don't, they're not going to. So, you may go, well, this person's trying to help to the best of their ability while remaining comfortable. And they weren't the ones that caused you the problems necessarily. Uh, you should try to be nicer to them because they're there to help you. You're still covering up fucking me over. So, guilty of that you are. And I said that point already in this video, but it's one I'm going to say again. Because this video happens to be a lot more interesting than a stupid documentary you could watch on the YouTube that, says something and they'll have like 4 or 5 lines of what they've said. And that's all the documentary will be. It'll be based solely around that, and they won't go into detail about anything because they go, well, this is long and boring and no one will want to listen to it. Instead, they make it long and boring and they don't say anything at all. So, waste of time. So as far as, the chemistry makeup of what vaccinations do, I ain't fucking got a clue. I don't know what it is. I have no interest in that subject. People of, different positions in society do. However, myself, I do not care. I care about the psychology of why this shit happens in the first place. And, that is the fundamental flaw to a lot of the evil that goes on is not the how, it's the why. And I learned that lesson a long time ago by watching James Bond. But anyway, yeah, society's got to change. Someone's got to be the badass and, explain to people why they're cunts. That's the best way to do it is, I'm going to explain to you everything you fucked up on. I don't think I know everything, but one day I'll know a lot more. And when I do, well, I'm sorry. Oh, no, I'm not sorry. You wouldn't be sorry in my position. How I even have room to feel even a little bit of guilt for someone who guilty of disguising evil, guilty of some extent to saying shitty things about me to enable shitty things to have happened to me in the first place, not actually doing anything about it, pretending it doesn't exist, trying to sweep it under the rug so that they put me in a state where I never think about it and nothing ever changes and all the bad things happen to me never get brought to light because it would inconvenience them and it would make some asshole really angry. And it's like, I'm sorry, you can continue to talk to me in an over stupefied manner. You can, essentially, well, there's nothing I can do to stop it anyway. Make bureaucratic threats towards the people who are doing less harm towards persons not unlike myself, so that they do not do anything. They're not forced to move. They're in their space of comfort, and they're not going to do anything. Unfortunately, that is not working out for me, because then that all translates into me getting fucked over, and that's simply the way it is. And I don't want to get fucked over. I'm tired of being embarrassed. I'm tired of being treated like trash. And one person, or some people once said, in order for evil to be successful, all they need is good men to do nothing. And it's very true. It is very true. And they have their own situations to think about and what's in their own best interest, and they go, well, what do we owe this person? What do we owe them? It's part of the evil of the world, and we're stuck in the system ourselves. Although they have problems of their own, they're using that as an excuse to enable bad things to happen to people who've done nothing wrong. And in doing so, they're part of the problem. And, I'm willing to accept that I might be a tad bit wrong on certain things, but I will say their narrative, and in contrast to my narrative, given the time and space, their narrative is gonna look a lot more absurd, and they're gonna treat people like they're stupid a whole lot more. They're not gonna challenge them to think. They're gonna tell them what it is, even though they don't know what it is. Tell them like it's a fact. Get angry in some way if they don't agree with it, simply because that's what they are. That's the only way they know how to do things. So anyway, I hope this video was thought-provoking for some people. If they actually watched it or not, I have no idea, because I don't know. There are things I know about my life. And there are also things I know about vaccinations and medications. It's all the same kind of shit. Manufactured bullshit. And each generation, experiments on everybody. Everybody's an experimental patient, one way or the other. And it's become one grotesque, hideous Frankenstein monster. And Frankenstein's the doctor, by the way. He's the fucking asshole. And they present him in all the depictions of it as him being a humble, trying his best. He's doing this, almost all depictions, but really he's a nasty bastard.
an abusive cunt. And, you know, we'll have to see how things go. But anyway, talk to you people later. I'm at the hour mark of the video, so I will give this subject a little more thought at another point in time. And I hope those people with very, very small attention spans took the time to pay attention, because I actually said some things that might improve their knowledge base on this subject. It's an hour of your time. I understand that you're busy people, basically living life as comfortable as you can, and then doing your leisure activities that help you feel good about yourself. That's important, but you know um, if you don't want to challenge your mind, then or fix the problem, then you're part of the problem, unfortunately, and will be treated as such anyway, to one degree or another. And in saying that, okay, I've talked enough for now. I got things to do. So, yeah, don't trust nobody.